Good night, family and friends from HaVoC and Jugs. Johnny's our panel. Upstate Trucker, Jugs and beer. Tiger Lily, Paul, eat titties and beer. Derek, Jugs and be kind. Fireflies in the sky. Love and hugs, we shall see you again.
We got a surprise stream tonight. Got something a little spooky. Tonight, we're going to look at the Men in Black. We're going back from an old episode of Coast to Coast AM when Art Bell ran it. It was from July 28th, 1997. So we are stepping back a little bit. And we're not talking about the movie Men in Black. So there's not going to be little flash memory erasers, which once the show's over with, you may want. But tonight, Jen isn't here because Jen's not been feeling well. And they had to skip the show earlier today. So Trucker asked me to come on and give you something to fill in, something to chew on, something to think about. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce my co-host for this evening. This is Upstate Trucker. Most of you know him as Scott. Say hi, Scott. You're full screen.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Yeah, we do like Jane, like he said, we do apologize about earlier, but we are gonna make it up. I did ask him, let's do a reaction. So we figured out we'll just do the one about Men in Black. You said it was from what, 1977?
1997 is when it aired on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is an older recording, but I'm certain it's going to have something interesting in it. We've used Coast to Coast AM audio recordings before. As a matter of fact, the Black Eyed Children was a Coast to Coast recording with George Norrie.
Which that stream yesterday, it turned out really good. I actually enjoyed that one.
Yeah, we were threatening to kick people in the head.
Oh, hold on.
Trucker is so happy about this.
Damn it, it's out of my reach.
Yeah, he got a hard hat because he's afraid I'll kick him in the head.
Oh, shit.
Here's the answer to little kids that are pale with black eyes that speak monotone that won't look up at you right away and ask for things. You kick them in the head and you run away. That is how you stay alive.
No, come on now. You know, if you have any grandkids, you know if they come up to you and say, "Hey, Papa, can we have this?" You'd be like, "Yep." You're not gonna kick them in the head.
If they are pale, speaking in monotone, and have solid black eyes, yes, I am. Okay, so well, let's get to the Men in Black. For those that don't know, okay, I'll give you a brief little summary of the Men in Black. I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe the first time that they were notably came about was after the Roswell crash, and they made threats to people who had seen the crash or had touched the material. Things like it's a large desert out here, you could go missing, and no one would ever find you. It spawned movies, and they're associated with UFOs and the paranormal. So, and if you're a video game fan, the G-Man from Half-Life is one of the Men in Black. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we are going to cut to the show with Art Bell. Men in Black. The Men in Black weren't human. We're going to go ahead and listen in, and then we'll give our 2 cents as we go along, and hopefully we don't have to kick the Men in Black in their head.
Let's go
And
now
I will
to
be
Tempe,
ready for it
Arizona,
if he does
where
try
apparently
to.
there has been an occurrence. Jim Delatoso is on the line with me. Jim, thank you for taking time out. You're in a lab in Tempe, right?
I'm in the world-famous labs.
Would you fill the audience in, please, on who you are, just in case, some
hear
are not aware this dates back to the March 13th.
Are you running it or are you listening to it through the Discord?
That's what. It's not even popping up. That's what I said. I'm going to have to leave and I'll come back.
Okay. Let me.
Be right back, everyone.
So while we wait for Trucker, because apparently he could not hear this show. So we're going to wait for him to leave and then come back. So that he can get all the good news about the Men in Black. Which is interesting because just looking at the title, the Men in Black aren't human. Are we supposing that they're aliens trying to stop humans from speaking about alien topics or alien subjects or things that people know about aliens? And if they're not human, if they're not aliens, are they interdimensional? Something of that sort. I don't know. I personally don't believe in that stuff, but it is what it is. Okay, we've got Trucker back in the mix. Seeing if his camera will work for him. Okay, we got your camera working back. I'm going to go ahead and hit play, see if you can hear it.
Yes.
Light event over Phoenix.
Well, I'm the president of a company called Village Labs. We've been in business.
What was that?
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
All right, so you can hear the stream?
Yeah.
Okay. And he's got his hard hat on in case he's one of these black-eyed kids or one of the Men in Black and need his head kicked.
Why to kick me? I'm prepared.
You're still not safe. Still not safe. Okay. Okay, we will go back to the broadcast of the Men in Black Weren't Human with Art Bell from Coast to Coast AM from July 28th, 1997.
For about 25 years, priorly under two names, Computer Graphics Lab, a computer graphics design company, and the Village Recorder, a world-famous rock and roll recording studio.
Oh, okay.
Both places have been noted throughout their history, each in their own industry, for innovative work. The Village Recorder, home of Steely Dan, Supertramp, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, and many rock and roll bands.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And Computer Graphics Lab, we were the innovators in flight simulator and classroom engine maintenance simulators for DARPA and movie colorization technologies that we developed, and supercomputer installations and design technologies, and we work a lot in the aerospace industry. So with those two families of tools available since the late 70s, I've been interested in and participated in the testing of many pieces of evidence that seem to be part of the paranormal.
Okay. And in that regard, you got an opportunity to get your hands on the footage of the now famous or infamous lights over Phoenix on March 13th.
That's right. I got my hands on, because it happened in my own backyard. Usually I test.
Are you aware of the March 13th lights over Phoenix?
No.
Okay, what happened is that now, if I remember this correctly, there were several lights over Phoenix that, like, almost the entire population saw and believed were UFOs. My understanding is the Air Force said that they were flares, but most people that saw it on the ground said that it couldn't have been flares, that the movement was too erratic. And if I remember
Wasn't that
correctly,
wasn't that also when they try to say that came? Because didn't they say something about it also came out of where some people say it came out of Area 51 or something like that?
I'm not sure. I just know that the people of Phoenix, a lot of them saw and recorded these lights, uh, and if I recall correctly, without looking it up, the U.S. government said that they were flares dropped from Air Force planes during.
Okay.
It it was supposed to be like during routine flights or practice or something like that, which
Right.
is odd because my understanding is the Air Force normally does not do such things over extremely populated areas.
Yeah, they basically do it in the desert
Right. Well,
where there's no one.
right. And like I said, that's just my assumption, and it's just what I've heard. I was never in the Air Force, but it doesn't look like you would put your classified airplanes in the air above Phoenix. Just my
Right.
take.
And put your own people, your own citizens in high risk of danger.
Right. So that's pretty much. I believe that's what they're talking about. For some reason, 1997 seems an awful long time away from this. It seems like it was more recent, but I may be wrong. I've slept since then. So, okay, we'll go back into the recording and we're going to listen about the Men in Black.
Test evidence for other investigators, ranging from Marina Popovich of the former Soviet Union, Jaime Maussan in Mexico,
Sure.
all over the world. I've tested some of the more infamous cases. You never hear about the ones where I find the hoax. You only hear about the ones where someone has some story to sell or tell about the most recent sighting. So when the Phoenix Lights case came about, and a number of the investigators, including Bill Hamilton, that I have a high regard for, got involved in the case, I was asked to, and did indeed, test the video and the pictures that came about as part of the evidence.
And what did you find?
Well, initially, as I do in most cases, I set out to find out what it's not, like fingerprints on a doorknob. You have fingerprints of an unknown, and you attempt to match it to something that is known.
So you look frame by frame, and you're looking for fraud, of course.
Well, we look for fraud, we look for Hale-Bopp, we look for planets, we look for stars, we look for airplane lights, we looked for flares over and over and over again.
Especially flares, let's stress that
Well,
point.
especially flares. And one of my colleagues, Michael Tanner, and I have been working together for about 20 years in various UFO cases. Most of them never reach the public.
Yes, sir.
But Michael handled...
Okay, we will pause right there.
Yeah.
Scott,
That there, okay.
your camera's froze
Yeah.
up on you, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I said. See, I'm not going to be able to watch. Hold on, let me get past this truck here. But if you can hear me, I'll just keep talking, then I'll fix it when I pass this truck, because he's actually fighting me.
Okay.
So, yeah, when they talk about with the lights, that kind, like you said, that it seems like it just, something like that was just happened.
Yeah.
If you remember about it, what was it, a year ago or so, with these drones. that what was it, New Jersey? Forgot what other, or was it? There's a couple states.
I remember
The
seeing
government
some.
was.
Yeah, I remember seeing something
Go ahead.
about it. It was like they were supposed to be coming out of the water or something like that. Vaguely remember it. I know what happened, but I don't remember the details.
Right. So yeah, so that's probably that could be why you. I could be wrong, but that could be why you was thinking that it probably just happened.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. Now, I find it interesting though that his method, and I would agree with this, that his method to study things is to take the things that you know and rule those
Right.
out. I think that would be a good methodology. Sorry, to determine what's fact from what's fiction, because there's definitely UFO hoaxers out there, and
Right.
the more people that they can convince with their hoax, the better, right? Because it doesn't do any good to make a hoax and you convince two people, when you could convince an entire city or county that they saw something they
Right.
didn't. But I like the methodology he uses where we have these fingerprints of different things that have been called UFOs or different things that have been misidentified, and those are the things we look for first. I like
Oh yeah.
I like the idea that he's not going in looking for UFOs. He's going in looking for the normal and the obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Because like
like
you said,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, because like you said that he's looking for, like, for example, fingerprints on doorknobs and stuff.
Right. Which is like flares or hellbop or planets, that could give the
Yeah.
image of or make a viewer on the ground believe they've seen a UFO, genuinely believe it, and they record it, and an actual excuse me, I'm sorry, an actual explanation comes forward on what it is. Or it's
Mhm.
someone that sees something and they know it's Venus. They know it's Mars. They know it's an asteroid.
Right.
And they're trying to pass it off as a UFO. So it's nice to see that what he's talking about is we're not looking to prove it's a UFO. We're looking to find out what it is. Because
Right.
all too often, what people do is they get in their head the narrative that they want, and then they go looking for proof of that narrative instead of looking at the evidence and the facts and how things have worked out to determine what actually happened. You're the way good good methodology works is you compare the evidence, what's happened, what's testable, what you can get from experimentation, and then you take those things and you draw a conclusion. All too often, especially with the paranormal, UFOs, stuff like that, you have the explanation that you want to give, and then you start looking for the evidence to prove
To get the
it.
proof.
Right.
Yep.
And that's entirely backwards. So I'm happy to hear from his perspective, at least, that he's stating we try to find things that are normal that people could confuse, and we rule them out first before we start saying this is a UFO.
Mhm.
All right. So what we'll do is we're going to go back. We're going to go back in to the audio from Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
In investigating and following up on witness reports that came to us from Peter up in Seattle.
Peter Davenport.
Peter
Right?
Davenport. And MUFON, to the degree that they had collected names and followed up somewhat, there were some controversies at the beginning about how the investigation should be conducted and what was a real investigation versus a club effort.
Okay.
And we decided to proceed in our own way and investigated the evidence as it was available, as well as following up on claims that were made by MUFON and other investigators and the National Guard and what have you. We came to the conclusion that there was no possible way that these could be flares, flying in the face of MUFON's contention that they were flares, some misreports at the beginning that the National Guard had said that they were flares. Later, Captain Eileen Benz released...
All right, before we get to that, let's get down to how did you conclude that it could not be flares? That's really important because I know what's flashing around Phoenix.
Yeah, that
right
is
now for
interesting.
you.
How
Well,
can
there's
you?
two ways to do it.
How
First
can
is
you not-
optical analysis.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was saying, yeah, that is true. How can you conclude that they are not flares without because more likely, the way it seems like it's basically happening at night than it is during the day.
Right.
I don't know. That's what I'm getting out of it. Because if you, but
Well, I was going to say, having served, I've seen military flares. You can see them during the daytime as well too. They're designed to burn so hot that anything that's tracking heat will follow the flare away from the aircraft.
right, and then if it was flares, okay, during daytime, you should be able to easily notice if it's a flare because you'll see the smoke from it. Should
Right.
be able to, but I could be wrong.
I believe the Phoenix lights were of a night. So, but yeah, we'll listen and find out how he determined they were not flares.
You have video, grab it in the computer, and compare apples and apples. You compare the unknown objects to and their signature. It's kind of like in audio, where you can look at the wave shape. A violin note is different than a clarinet note.
Of course.
An A note is different than a C note.
And a flare is different than whatever this was.
For a number of reasons. Flares have their own characteristics in the way that they burn. They sputter. They are not evenly spaced in their brightness in the, so to say, a corona. It's called a sigma. And the evenness of the way that the light is distributed around the object. A light bulb, for example, has the tungsten inside, has the glass bulb itself, and has the glow or the corona that is around it. Three different things to look at.
Flares also light up the ground, don't they?
Some of them light up the ground. They
Now, here about the flares lighting up the ground from aircraft. Not all the time.
Yeah, I think that's right what he's about to say. Not
Especially military
not all
aircraft. Especially
Right.
military aircraft. And the reason being that you don't always want your flares to light up the ground is you may have troop movement on ground and you're trying to drop something that's got heat on you.
right.
You don't want to light up your ground troops. You know, I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not Nick at Night. That's what the Army calls their night infiltration course. You know, where they shoot flare. They're firing light rounds over their head while they crawl towards an objective, and the flares are shot up, and that's when they stop movement. But yeah, it's a lot of the flares that the U.S. military use. Some will light up the ground because they're hunting out the enemy, but that I don't see that over a populated area. I don't see that.
Yeah. I don't either.
Yeah, that seems weird. It looks like they would use the kind that just produces the heat and doesn't have that aurora pitch down. And usually, those type of flares don't go close to the ground and burn up. And I would also say that having been around these things, especially A10s, when an A10 if it pops any kind of flare, even if it's its targeting flare, there's because it hits the ground, there's a lot of smoke, and there's always something left. It looks like if there were all these flares that were dropped to make this phenomenon, something would not have completely burned up. Someone would have found evidence of flares and been like, "Hey, you idiots! Here's the flare that didn't burn, that didn't ignite, or didn't burn all the way."
Yeah, but would they actually turn it in? They would probably just keep it for their own selves.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could see them keeping it and be like, "Hey, you know what?" But they would still come forward because then they become the focus of the story. They're the ones who solved the great mystery, of the Phoenix Lights.
Right.
I mean, if I found it and I wanted to make a name for myself and I wanted to get my 15 minutes of fame, I would be here's the U.S. flare. Here's the flare. One of the flares that was shot out that did not burn completely or did not ignite. It was a dud. It's
Right now, but here's the question: would the military know which flares? Would they be able to tell what flares that didn't burn?
no,
Is there a way to tell? No.
they would just know by like if this were a flare that had been shot out, it would be marked. That they would have their own markings. That they would know it was theirs.
Right.
They don't know if a flare didn't fire, right, or didn't ignite. But if they saw it, they'd be like, "Yep, that's one of ours." Their stuff's too identifiable, and it's that way for a reason, so that if you have to do a field investigation, especially in something that may be a hotter zone than what you'd want to, everything that we use is extremely identifiable as ours. So, but yeah, so all right, we'll go back and we'll listen to him explain more about why he does not believe that the Phoenix Lights were flares.
Generally light up the ground. Some are designed for heat, some are designed for light, but generally speaking, they will light up the atmosphere, they will light up the ground, they each have their own purpose, but I've been involved in optical science for a long time, even though there are many who say that I don't have a company, am not qualified. Anyone who has ever actually been to Village Labs knows that we are a very sophisticated and highly regarded facility. It is well within our means to test the detail of flares and to know that the red, green, and blue component of the lights are out of phase at different places around the light, knowing that the optical characteristics of flares sputter ever so slightly, and that when you look at two thumbprints of a human, they are different from each other, but when you look at the difference between a thumb of one man and another, they are very different, and the thumb of a man and an ape, they are extremely different.
Sure.
That is the difference between a flare and these unknown lights.
That much difference.
That much difference.
So it is not ambiguous.
No,
These
absolutely not.
simply were not flares.
They simply were not.
All
And
right. As you know,
Now, I want to point out here the concern that they're saying he didn't have a business, and that he's not in the business of this. But I believe he said it was Village Studios, which would be odd to be comparing visual aspects, because if I recall correctly, he said that it was originally a recording studio. It was a music recording studio. I remember him like mentioning the Eagles and so forth. Which,
Right.
I mean, without research, without me sitting on here and ignoring, because I looked up Village Studios and there's several of them. As a matter of fact, there are 2 separate ones in Los Angeles. And being woefully unprepared, for a surprise stream, and I just don't. I would probably be one of the people that questions his qualifications to determine if it's a flare or not. Now, I'm not saying that it was flares, but I would question his ability to be called an expert. So, okay, we'll go back and hopefully we'll see how this ties into the Men in Black Aren't Human someplace. We'll go back to Coast AM with Art Bell that aired July 28th, 1977.
There is a Captain Benz, I believe her name is?
Yes, and I have a very good rapport, a very good dialogue and discussion with her. The day that she released the information that she had discovered that the Maryland National Guard had probably released flares 35 miles away from the targeted sighting point in Phoenix, she discussed with me the fact that she wondered if it was going to be all over the world, that the flares were now going to be embraced as the explanation for the entire 2.5 hours of sightings.
Which indeed is exactly what has occurred. I've heard it from Phoenix again and again and again. I got calls from the Arizona Republic the other day.
Yes.
And I said, for God's sakes, that's right. Don't let this be the explanation that goes out to the world, because I know it's going to happen. I said the same thing to him.
I had him over here on.
Well, I find that interesting that Art Bell's first concern is I don't want the story of flares to be what goes out to the world, because people might believe it.
And then he's like, sounds like he's getting the information from, I can't remember, I got a brain fart on that, who he said from this one girl who was in the military. It sounds like he's getting all the information from her. It's not actually him doing the work.
Well, I think he was saying that's who he got the release from, that he knew it would be flares, and why he may have focused heavily on it. But with Art Bell, the first thing I notice about what he says is it's the exact opposite of what I said that I liked about the researcher. Sorry, I just forgot his name. Art Bell has a narrative, and he's looking for clues that prove that narrative. And when there's something being said that goes against that narrative, he wants to ignore it. He doesn't want it to go out. So, okay, we will go back to the Men in Black who came for the evidence weren't human. From Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Saturday.
And?
Discovery Channel was here for 4 days.
Right.
Doing a detailed 1-hour investigation of the investigation called The Anatomy of a UFO Sighting. And they talked to everyone from Richard Motzer, who you've talked to before, to radio and television personalities, to witnesses, to pilots. And they were exposed to the television, radio, and newspaper press who had reported on this, and Richard was over. And it wasn't until we came to the lab and actually saw the testing itself that he knew, and it was blatant and obvious, that the flares as videotaped by other investigators and by Channel 12, compared side by side with the unknown objects, were not even remotely close. The difference between a violin and an oboe.
Sure.
Interesting. He compared the lights on video with recordings of flares as two separate different instruments. As a matter of fact, so far apart that he considered one a violin and the other an oboe.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. He's like, because between the Discovery Channel and Channel 12, their research, it's like you can't compare them together. Just like with the violin and elbow.
you know, I don't know. See, with that kind of analysis right away, the skeptic in me wonders if it was that obvious that it's violin oboe, right?
Hmm.
I don't see military intelligence releasing a statement that these are flares if it's that obvious that what would essentially could be a layman would notice the difference. So that's just the skeptic in me. Whenever I hear such bold, point blank statements, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder.
I'm still trying to figure out with all these flares going on, what does it have to relate with Men in Black?
I'm not certain. I'm going to assume that we are going to hear that the Men in Black appeared after the Phoenix Lights and spoke to witnesses. These stories I'm not aware of, but I think that's where we're headed. So we'll go ahead and go back and we'll start the audio up again.
Not just the difference between a C note on a piano and an A note. I mean, drastically different.
Okay.
So we had to put a lot of time and attention. I'm a very busy person. I have a lot of things to do in our day-to-day work, but I address the flares and the entire Phoenix Lights issue because it was viewed of such incredible significance by others around the world, and in my studies, I started seeing things in the unknown light objects that I have never seen in my optical analysis of anything before.
Well,
Okay, before we find out what he's seen in the optical analysis that no one else has ever seen before, once again, the skeptic in me starts screaming bullshit at this point. Because this is not a renowned researcher that we're talking about. Now, that's not to say that someone in his position couldn't have found something that others haven't seen before. But I would find it hard to believe that he is the first to have seen this. And that is empirical evidence that it is something far different than what most people think it is. So, why don't we do this, Scott? Before before we go on and we find out what it is he found out, let's hold it on a cliffhanger. Let's do it like a commercial. Let's go ahead and run the ad for the Asylum Discord server.
And we do. We in order, if you want to, before he does run it, if you want to communicate with us more often, we are constantly in there. Feel free to join it. We will communicate with you through there throughout the day.
That's right.
I pay a lot of attention to it. He does. Jamie pays a lot of attention to it. Jen pays a lot of attention to it. So yeah, we will get to you if you got any questions or if you want to see something that you want us to react to. Well, we don't mind no idea. We like to have ideas.
That's right. The Asylum is built for small creators to meet bigger audiences and for those audiences to meet new creators creating content that they'll enjoy. So we'll go ahead and get the link, the invite link to that Discord is pinned in the comments. So let's take a look at the Asylum.
Discord server, peep the name, the Asylum, not for the faint. Gotta bring your A game, small creators, trying to get that shine. Lost in the algorithm, wasting time. HaVoC built this from the ground up, see community vibes, wild and free. Boosted studios in the mix, yeah. New audience, forget the tricks here. The Asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The Asylum, what we do? Connect you, me and you. The Asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The Asylum, what we do? Connect you, me and you. Yeah, got everything for every type of soul, from the artists to the gamers. JG can control musicians, poets, all in one place. Level up your craft, pick up the pace. Networking, learning, ain't no faking. Real connections, that's what we making. Little bit of this, little bit of that. Something for everyone, where you at? Hidden gems start to gleam, living out your wildest dreams. The Asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The Asylum, what we do? Connect you, me and you. The Asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The Asylum, what we do? Connect you, me and you.
Okay, that was a look at the Asylum and what it offers, some of what it offers. The Discord server's free, no memberships. If you're a small creator, you're more than welcome. It's a way to find people to collaborate with, new ideas, new audiences. If you're a viewer and you just want to be able to meet some of the creators that you enjoy and find new creators that have content that you would enjoy, we've got everything from musicians to gamers.
Yep, and then if you want to show us out, we do got tags you can add onto yourself.
Yep.
On your name.
It is a we do offer a high definition studio for those that stream with Discord. They're allowed to go in and stream in there. There's no charges, there's no fees. We're just looking to help new talent that want to find that audience and want to do something fun and creative. Okay, so we're back. We're going to go ahead and take a longer listen. It's supposed to be the Men in Black weren't human, but so far we've covered mostly the Phoenix Lights, and this comes from a radio broadcast of Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell that aired July 28th, 1997.
What would those be?
Well, the clarity and the purity of the light, and most specifically, the way that it went out. It did not go out like an artificial light, like voltage going down. It did not sputter and go out like a flare. It went out like an iris closed and blocked the light.
Just like the closure of your eye. If you were just going to like close your eye. Boom,
that is
gone.
correct. That is correct.
Okay.
So what he discovered that was so different from everybody else, or that he believes was unique, was that it didn't sputter out, it didn't tinker out, it closed like an eye. Which, once again, I hate to be the skeptic of everything, but from the video that they've had, how can you really pull up that much detail to be certain that's how it happened? I mean, he may very well be right. Don't get me wrong. He may very well be right. He He may be spot on, but it seems like that's a lot from so little.
Like he knows more than what he probably should have known, probably. If he is right.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. We'll go ahead and go back into the audio.
And I talked to a friend of mine that some of you may know of, David Froning. I've known for about 15 years, who is the director of Advanced Propulsion Studies at McDonnell Douglas, and I know him quite well. And
interesting to hear that name, McDonnell Douglas. My father used to work for him. He worked for him before he passed away. Now they're Boeing.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, McDonnell Douglas used to be home of the Blue Angels.
Okay, all right. I was about to say, why does that sound familiar? And then you said now they're Boeing.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I got it now.
Yeah, McDonnell Douglas was a military aircraft contractor.
Right.
And then Boeing bought him out.
Yeah. And with that Boeing, I'm going to put a little on. Oh, yeah, all right, go ahead.
At length, about a month after the incident happened, and we decided that it wasn't a topic at the moment that would be meaningful to anyone in the UFO clubs or to any of the other investigators we were working with, and that there were some things that we were going to look into.
Now that's odd that he believed that finding these lights and proving they're not flares, but that they closed like an eye, would not be meaningful. Like I said, I'm a skeptic, right? I might have bought this as flares or early drones. You know, we're talking back 1997. I'm pretty certain the government had something to that effect. You know, not like the commercial drones we have now.
Yeah, because drones wasn't even really, well, it wasn't even really, trying to remember, the year that the drones was actually brought to public was, what, about 7 years ago, roughly?
I have no
idea. Maybe 8?
I know that they've been used commercially for some time.
Yeah.
And then privately, a good drone still requires an FAA license, from what I understand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do.
So.
Because due to no flight zones.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it kind of just perked my ears up whenever he said, we found this and we didn't think it would be a big thing to bring to the UFO community. If there's proof that the lights are going off that way, and it just completely shuts out the notion that it's a flare, it looks like that would be very pertinent information to bring out. But that's just my take.
The flares issue we saw was going to be an item that MUFON was going to argue about, whether they were put up to it or they were jealous and doing it on their own, but it was going to be an issue, and that we had to have definitive proof that these were not flares.
Okay.
We had no reason to publish a report on all of our findings at that time, even at this time, and to provide it to...
Again, that seems very strange. He's pretty much saying that we have evidence that it's not flares, but we don't have a reason to publish at this time. It looks like that would be the perfect time to publish.
So if you don't feel that it should be published at this time, why is he actually talking about it
Well, he's talking about it, I believe, years afterwards. But like I said, it doesn't make sense that if the military's coming out and they're presenting to the public that it's flares, and you have some kind of evidence that it is not, and then you say it's not important at that time to release, it seems like that would be the most pertinent time possible to shut the military up if they're doing a cover up.
Right.
So I'm just not, like I said, my bullshit meter with this gentleman is just going off the chart, and
Yeah,
that
'cause
just may
I'm-
be me.
Yeah, because I'm still waiting to see how it comes in effect with the Men in Black. It's like, okay, you guys are supposed to be talking about Men in Black, but so far, all you guys have talked about is the flares.
Well, we'll see where it leads us, because, like I said, it may very well lead us to the Men in Black. We're a third of the way in, so this may be setting the story for us on this gentleman's experience with the Men in Black. So we will go back to the audio.
To people who are still immersed in their own view. You know, I have met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of UFO investigators over the years, and or more.
Can I cover one other question with you,
Yes.
Jim? Barry Young, who's a talk show host there in Phoenix during
I've
the
never
day.
met him, but I've heard he talks about me.
He talks about me too. Has said again and again that he, for example, had a young astronomer who focused his telescope for a period of time on these lights and saw airplanes.
He was here Saturday night.
Got bored and focused elsewhere, and that was the explanation. Now, of course, they're coming back and saying flares. Was it?
Okay. Do we find it interesting that that someone came forward and said it was planes, and they found it uninteresting, so they focused elsewhere?
Right.
And it seems like this individual is possibly a skeptic.
Right.
Could be. My understanding is that Art Bell and his former wife believed that they had a very close encounter with UFO, or possibly abducted. I know they had some kind of experience with UFO, or they believe they did. And then from the researcher, I am getting an awful lot of I believe in UFOs. Whenever you hear, I've talked to hundreds of UFO researchers. But once again, that's kind of a red flag, in my opinion. It seems like he's not unbiased. So it's just what I caught whenever he said it. Once again, the skeptic in me, the bullshit alarm's going off.
Yeah.
So, and it seems like he's really trying to prove his expertise over others too
And not getting
intently.
anywhere with it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're an expert, you're an expert, and you being an expert, that just ends in period. It doesn't need a paragraph. And it seems like he's writing the paragraph. All right, we'll go back to the audio.
Airplanes.
It is possible that that young man saw airplanes that night, but there are some things that don't add up.
In other words, what's on your tape can you definitively say that what's on your tape?
It was a different event.
A different event. So
there were a number of events that night. Mitch Stanley looked into his telescope.
Interesting. The explanation immediately is he very well could have seen planes in his telescope, but it had to be a different event.
Right. So, is he talking about, is it flares that he's seen, or is it the airplane?
Well,
But then he also said there are two different events.
what they're saying is that the young gentleman that's a broadcaster has said he saw
Right.
planes, and it was unremarkable, and he focused elsewhere. The U.S. military said what people saw were flares, and our gentleman researcher speaking to Art Bell is positive that there were multiple events that night, and that the seeing of airplanes was not relevant to the lights. So, at least that's what I'm getting from it. We'll go back to the audio and see where he takes us, because it's been a trip so far.
Scope at between 8:20 and 8:40 that night. If he saw airplanes, 9 of them, in a V formation, it was a radical formation. Airplanes do not like to fly. It is not safe to fly. It is not traditional or conventional to fly 9 in a V.
Well, not only that, but as far as
fly.
I know, you don't fly airplanes over a populated area like Phoenix without having a transponder on.
And without having a very specific and absolute reason.
That's right. And you recall the testimony of the two towers.
Once again, I'll interject here on this from what I do know about military flights. If they were if they were practicing, or they were running a mission simulation, they would not turn their transponders on.
Right.
Now, local towers would have been notified, to keep planes out of this area, commercial aircraft out of that area. But this notion that they must have their transponders on, from what I understand, is absolutely incorrect. Now, that may be the case for, practice flights, test flights, getting flight time in, flyovers, so forth.
That's what I was basically going to get onto, because, okay, I understand running 9, but I have in personal seen them running in a V shape. There'll be 3 or 5, but like you said, they're just like a flyover. They'll run in a V shape.
Right. That's a common formation.
Yeah, but not no 9 at once.
The numbers, like I said, I wasn't in the Air Force, so I don't have the expertise in this. I wasn't a pilot. I just can go off what I've seen, but the idea that they would not have transponders on, if this was some form of training, like I said, they probably would have notified towers and airfields to keep commercial aircraft out of that area at those particular times.
Yep.
But that does not mean they would have their transponders on, so that towers could
Right.
track them. So that's once again, that's just my take, where it didn't seem to make sense in what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like he wants this. Excuse me. It seems contradictory to his original statements of, we prove what it's not to come up with what it is. It's starting to feel like he wants it to be a UFO, and he's finding ways to prove it.
To try to get, that's what I was about to say, try to get people to believe it was UFOs instead of planes or flares or whatever.
Okay, let's go back to the audio.
Our guys who say there was nothing there.
There was nothing there, and Peter Gersten filed Freedom of Information Act. We got reports that there were no airplanes of that nature flying. Now, Mitch Stanley might have seen something.
But not what you've got on tape.
not what we have on tape. That was a different incident. A V formation of 9 planes, each with 3 lights on it. You know, it's very difficult to focus a telescope at 10, 15, 20, 30,000 feet.
You betcha.
An astronomical telescope. Mitch may be very adept and capable, and he seems like an astute and honest man. And I believe, even though he shrugged and has hands in his pocket a lot, body language notwithstanding, that I believe that he will stand by what he says he saw. Now, A-10s or other airplanes, said they had straight wings, would not fly in a formation of 9 with lights on. They would fly 3 by 3.
Not only that, but they would make 9 of those would make a whole lot of noise.
And we stored that and said, let us say
the whole lot of noise. Now, if it's an A10, yes. However, an A10 can sneak up on you. I've
Right.
an A10 is, for those who don't know, they're called warthogs. They are ugly, ugly planes, but I have never met a Marine that did not love them because they are armor killers. And they can take out ground units like that. So, you know, when you're pinned down and you got shit flying over your head, hearing the of an A10 that's a beautiful thing. So
Now,
but I don't think that I don't think that they would be secretly flying A10s. And I just looked up the VIC formations or the V formations for planes. It is common for the VIC formation to be flown in 3s, 5s, 7s, and 9s.
okay, now you just proved my other conspiracy wrong, because I was going to say, with it being going 9, would that make because you're going to get a whole crap. I'm sorry, you're going to get a whole crap load of turbulence there.
Actually,
With the running that man.
Actually, what according to what I've searched up here, it reduces the drag, so it wouldn't cause turbulence. It makes it so that their fuel economy is better. It says it reduces drag by positioning themselves in the upwash of the aircraft ahead. Trailing planes can reduce their energy expenditure and increase their fuel efficiency.
Okay, all right then. That shut my what I was about to say down then.
Well, I wouldn't have thought of it because I would think, you know, like boats in a wake, and I know how the Navy is. You know, that's
Yeah.
You don't want small ships in the wake of a big ship for
Right.
particular reasons, but apparently the planes work far better whenever they're flying like this. So, and
Hey, that's something new.
yeah, and a VIC formation of 9 planes is not unheard of. Now, it may be for A10s, which is fine, but how can we be certain these are A10s? Because most, and to say I saw planes is one thing. An A10 is extremely recognizable. If you've ever seen one, the next time you see one again, you're going to be like, yep, that's an A10. You know, that's it. That's the gun with wings. That's what Marines used to refer to them as. Because you can pretty much shoot those damn things apart and they'll still fly. And they are just, they just rain hell on a battlefield. Like I said, anytime you've got Overwatch and it's an A10, that you feel much better. So, okay. And like he just said planes, it was an A10. So it's interesting to me, once again, the skeptic, that we'll pick one of the, well, a Harrier's kind of noisy whenever it takes off, but one of the loudest planes and say, well, everybody would know it was planes because of the noise, and then say, well, because A-10s make noise. Once again, it seems like I've got the answer I want in my head, so I'm going to take any evidence that's contradictory to it, and I'm just going to ascribe something that negates it. Because instead of A-10s, what if they were stealth bombers?
Mhm.
You know,
You'll be able to hear 'em miles away before they come.
right? Or stealth fighters. You know, any kind of air wing. They're known for not making a ton of noise. I mean, they fly under radars and they block. They're able to jam radars, but they wouldn't be effective if you could hear them 15 miles away either. So, I don't know. That's my take. Like I said, I'm starting to get the opinion that they have a narrative and they're trying to build evidence to prove that narrative, which
Mhm.
unfortunately did happen a lot on Coast to Coast AM sometimes. All right, we'll get back to the audio.
That anything that people reported may turn out to be true later. So let's save all information as true. Let's build a mathematics truth table and see what incident could possibly have come about that would account for what everyone claims that they saw. Meanwhile, I'm making my calls in and around to people that...
Okay, now he wants to make a chart of something that explains everything someone saw. Do you remember being a kid and playing a game called Telephone?
Yeah.
You know, where you basically whisper something to one of your buddies, and they whisper what you whispered, and you whisper what they whispered. Keeps going
Yeah.
down the line, and it changes to something
Yep.
completely different.
Yep. By the time it got to the end.
Right.
Yep.
That's the thing about eyewitnesses too.
Mhm.
Eyewitnesses are not as reliable as people think, and it doesn't mean they're lying. Police officers are trained observers. They're trained to take notes in their head about jean colors, shirt colors, if they're wearing a hat, approximate height, approximate weight. And even with all of that training, they are still faulty.
Right.
Because the human mind doesn't retain it, especially in something that is excitement driven, that's increasing the adrenaline. And if you believe you're seeing a UFO or an unidentified flying object or something supernatural or whatever, then
You're getting squeaky.
okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out and see what's going on. But any way it goes, whenever you get that, it I don't know. That seems like we're proving a predetermined point.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll get back into the audio.
that I work with on a daily basis. I still have a lot of aerospace collaborators, even though we work in the entertainment business too. And I discovered that people were calling me back that ordinarily I work with in supercomputers or parallel computers or aerospace only, and we're asking about the Phoenix Lights. People high enough up in those companies that I knew it was not just curiosity, and they knew from my other work that we know what we're doing at Village Labs, and if we are looking into the lights and we're making statements about things, that there is merit to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started getting phone calls from Texas and phone calls from Florida and phone calls from Maryland, went on for about a week, I knew that we were onto something of interest.
Yes.
When one particular day I had a trio of gentlemen come visit me, and friendly.
A trio of gentlemen.
Yes.
I believe now we're going to get into the Men in Black. a trio of gentlemen. I believe now we're going to start hearing the story of the Men in Black.
Where they fall in
One more time, I'm sorry.
at. I said get into where they fall into this set.
Yeah, it seems like if someone has some kind of pertinent information, they show up to threaten it or to suppress it somehow. From what I know of UFO stories, from what little I know, that seems to be their role, is to suppress witnesses and information.
None of whom I knew.
Dressed in what way, announcing themselves in what fashion?
They announced that they were looking for Jim Delatoso and had some questions for me. They were on their lunch break. They were dressed like people who go to work at a number of the government facilities here in town, not in suits. When I discussed all of this with my friend Jim Schneebelt of Fox Channel 10 here in town, who was really perturbed about the national press last week because he saw them himself. He was perturbed about the flare stories. He came over for a visit, and I recounted to him when I showed him this 25-page document that I have and gave him a copy of. We talked about whether or not it would go on the air. It was in his words that he used the Men in Black.
These guys came to see you.
Yes.
3 guys. And what did they want to know? What did they say? What were your impressions? Well, you gave us your impressions of them.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott. The Men in Black are showing up to pay him a visit because he believes he has information that proves it's not flares, it's not planes. What if you were one of the Men in Black? What would you want to talk to about with this gentleman?
What it because she said they're not government because they're not dressed in suits. I don't know, I would probably be like, okay, I would first off try to find out, see how he got all his information. Because
Go ahead.
I still gotta hear more. I still gotta hear more on it because we're just starting to get in Men in Black. So this is like all new to me. So I just gotta hear more.
If I was one of the Men in Black and I was approaching this gentleman, I think the first question I would ask him is where he buys his pot from. Then I think I just might kick him in the head.
Yes.
What did they want?
Well, initially they wanted to, I think, size me up.
Okay.
Spent a couple minutes doing that. They came right into the computer room, which I thought was a bit bold. Of course, we have a pretty
Apparently,
young thing
Scott
as a receptionist
is afraid that
out
he may
front.
be
And,
MIB.
she's
Every time he says kick in the head, I'm going to put this on.
Person to stop people from going into that room, and it was okay that day. I mean, we didn't have anything. We don't have secrets going on out in the blatant open computer room there.
Right.
So they asked for me and recognized me, and they immediately said, that they would like to see a video of the Phoenix lights. Did I have it available?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm kind of busy right now. Could we talk a little bit? And the leader of the 3 said, well, I think it would be good for us to talk right now. And I said, okay, what will we be talking about? And
at some point, Jim, did you say, a natural question, who are you guys?
Not yet, because
Now, there's
I say the same thing I was going to say.
there's something fishy about the story there too. once again, the skeptic in me screaming bullshit. If you have three men coming up to you and saying specifically they would like to talk to you about the Phoenix Lights, something that is controversial, to say the least, and you say you really don't have time for it, and they say they prefer to talk about it right then, and he did not think to ask who they were at that point.
Right. That there is another flag there.
No, I'm
Because
not.
why would you want to give your information out to people who you don't even know who they are, where they're from, or anything?
Well, like I said, I don't see someone coming into someone and being that demanding, and the question of who you are, or who the fuck are you to be demanding this of me, not being the first thing that comes to their mind. So, well, we'll find out why this gentleman didn't ask that question sooner, I assume.
It was the normal banter,
Okay.
No, it was normal banter. Because we understand you have information about the Phoenix Lights and you don't want to talk to them, but we prefer you talk to them now, is normal banter. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'll say it again. The skeptic in me is just screaming bullshit.
In the mix between the entertainment business and the technology business that we do, a lot of it has to do with the way that you set up the immediate relationships.
Okay.
And at that time, I didn't know who they had gotten through to get to me.
Okay.
So, right at this point, we're under 1 minute.
It was kind of like getting a phone call from somebody you don't know, but you're supposed to know, I guess.
That's right.
So you feel your way around it.
They looked vaguely familiar, and they were comfortable enough without being aggressive with being in there that it's like people that come backstage at a concert.
Okay.
I can tell people that know how to not trip over the wires.
Mm-hmm.
So it was lighthearted but very precise.
Mm-hmm.
And I dealt with it like someone telling me that, the Moody Blues are getting back together again and I need to pay attention for the show. In any case, I said, okay, what is it about? And he said it would be to my advantage to listen.
All
and
right.
I said, okay, let's...
That does not seem like normal banter to me. That doesn't seem like a normal conversation or a normal set of thought processes. For this not to have triggered in this gentleman's mind, oh shit, something's wrong. I can't imagine once again people coming up to me, going further in it, demanding, my time and my information, not knowing who they are, them being very direct, from what I'm understanding took place. It is either this conversation did not happen the way he believes, that his mind has made it something else because of the stories he's heard. It happened, but there's false memories or something.
Yeah.
Or
Not
he's
telling the whole thing.
right, or he's full of shit. And he wanted to get on Coast to Coast, or he's selling a book. Either way. Okay, we'll continue on in his explanation of The Men in Black Weren't Human, which aired on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on July 28th, 1977.
Let's talk then. said, what are you interested in? And he said, we've heard that you've been testing the lights. And I said, yes, I have. What are you interested in? And he said, what is its optical pattern? Do you have the original tapes? And I said, yes, I have them in the computer. He said, well, can we look at them? And I said, well, tell me what this is about.
Right.
And he asked me a name. He said, do you know HP? And I said, only on the telephone, but I do. And he said, well, are you familiar with his paper on 0-point energy and the studies at the lab? And I said, yes, we've talked about that. We're both in the same project right now.
Right.
And he said, okay, have you seen this paper? And he handed me a paper. And I said, yes, I have seen this paper.
I'm just going to say this. From the few UFO Men in Black stories that I hear, why is it every expert is somehow working on 0-point energy, and that's when the government gets involved? I mean, it makes sense, but you wouldn't think that many people would be working on 0-point energy projects. That just doesn't make sense.
I gotta use the restroom here. I'm already full off here. Let's go ahead and take a break real quick.
Okay, we'll take a break. We will look at the Asylum Discord one more time. It's the place for creators to come meet other small creators, to learn new ideas, new techniques, to collaborate, just to have general discussions, enjoy each other's company. It's a place for viewers to come meet new creators that share their interests. We have everything from musicians to gamers and everything in between, even UFO conspiracy theorists. It's worth checking out if you want to join that Discord. The link is pinned in the comments. Go ahead and click it. We would love to have you.
Oh, yeah.
Discord server, peep the name, the asylum, not for the faint. Gotta bring your A game, small creators, trying to get that shine. Lost in the algorithm, wasting time. HaVoC built this from the ground up, see community vibes, wild and free. Boosted studios in the mix, yeah. New audience, forget the tricks here. The asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The asylum, what we do, connect you, me and you. The asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The asylum, what we do, connect you, me and you. Yeah, got everything for every type of soul, from the artists to the gamers. JG can control musicians, poets, all in one place. Level up your craft, pick up the pace. Networking, learning, ain't no faking. Real connections, that's what we making. Little bit of this, little bit of that. Something for everyone, where you at? Hidden gems start to gleam, living out your wildest dreams. The asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The asylum, what we do, connect you, me and you. The asylum, where we at? Creators, no time to chit chat. The asylum, what we do, connect you, me and you.
Okay, that was the Asylum advert. We'd love to have you there. Small creator reviewer wanting to find something new, something exciting to watch. If you want to interact with the content creators, this is the perfect place. They have the studios there. They have waiting rooms. They may even let you jump up on their show and discuss topics that you're interested in.
Yep. And also, um, if you're planning on being a creator, we do have people that would might help you out to get you started and going
That's right.
as well.
Okay. Well, let's continue. We are 2/3 of the way done. So let's go ahead and continue to listen about The Men in Black Weren't Human, which aired on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on July 28th, 1997.
And he said, I shouldn't say they, he, one gentleman in particular, said, well, what do you think about it? And I gave him my comments about it, and he said, I understand that you have Steve Erskine here. Or not Steve Erskine, Steve Ellswick. Steve Ellswick was the founder of the Tesla Society about 10 years ago in Colorado Springs and has recently moved.
Once again, okay, now we have mention of the Tesla Society. The more zero point energy stuff. More free energy. It looks like the government, if the government entities would be more interested in that than UFOs.
Right.
But I don't know. It seems strange that, when you work with UFOs, you're working on pulling energy out of the air or something. So I don't know. That just seems strange to me.
Arizona and joined Village Labs.
Okay.
We talked about that for a couple of minutes. They were seeing how deep into the dialogue about that I could go, and they perceived that I could go real far. So immediately another paper was produced. Said, what do you think of this? Handed me a paper that was called Intergalactic Scenario, authored by the same person who had authored the prior paper. And I said, well, I can't really read and digest this right now, as I saw the diagrams and the complexity of the mathematics that was in it, and he said, we'll wait.
We'll wait?
We'll wait. And
that didn't set off sirens in his head that he needed to kick them in the head and run away. They saw, Scott, your camera's frozen again. But they saw, he saw the paperwork, and they want him to examine it and give his thoughts, from what I understand, that he's saying. And he realizes the complexity. He says he can't fully digest everything that he's going to be reading and seeing.
I'm not frozen.
I believe you are okay now. Yes, you're okay now. And their answer to it is, we'll wait. So they expect him to read and then come to an understanding and to fully comprehend what he is saying is very complex issues. And no red light goes off in his head to kick them in their head and run away. It looks like he would have believed this is no longer normal banner, and he is in a very, very dangerous situation. What are your thoughts on that, Scott?
Saying, and if how can I say this? If he's actually telling the truth on all this here, why I'm still confused why he will not give, well, to begin with, it's like he doesn't even know who these men in black are. still. And if he did find out, just didn't tell us, why would he not give them the information that they asked still? Because it's like they're still trying to get information out of them.
Right. I would think at this point I would start demanding identification, which it doesn't appear he did.
Right.
I don't know. That makes it odd to me. Maybe he can clear it up with the rest of his story here.
And I said, okay, give me a couple minutes. This is pretty hefty stuff. And he said something like, well, I'm sure you can deal with it. So I went to my upstairs office, escorted them back into the kitchen lounge that we have, and I gave them someone to give them coffee and keep them there. And I went upstairs and glanced over the paper. I did not read it, but I saw page by page what was in it, saw that it was all about the Phoenix Lights. The diagrams that were in it were specifically the Phoenix Lights, and it made reference to the Phoenix Lights on every page. And I came back.
Okay, so the gentlemen that come to him are demanding answers of what he knows about the lights, and then they're offering papers and diagrams of the lights.
Mm-hmm. And then I would be like, well, give me about, depending on how many pages it is, instead of glancing, I'd be like, give me a day or two to actually read over these here.
Well, see, they told him whenever he said that, they said they'd wait. And if he saw what was on there and he was so interested in the Phoenix Lights and proving that they weren't flares, I guess it's just me. I would not have glanced or perused or summarized this paperwork. I think I would have sat down and studied it a little bit just in case they took it with them, so that I knew where to look, or I had other source leads from these people.
Right.
That's just my take. That for someone who's a professional and wanting to investigate and looking for facts to formulate an opinion, that's an odd way of going about things. Once again, just my take. We'll go ahead and hear more of his story, see if we can figure out what he's thinking.
Back downstairs and said, what is this about?
Right.
And they said, you should continue your work, and these are specific areas that we want you to look into. And I said, well, under whose authority?
Right.
And he said a really unusual thing. It was under yours. And I said, well, under mine? I mean, is this a contract? Am I going to be paid to do this? Is it of my personal interest?
Logical question.
Yes. And he said, you'll be contacted. And I said,
okay, so this information needs to be examined and so forth, and it's under his authority. But yet, we have still not heard if he has asked them to identify themselves.
Right.
So
and now he wants to get paid through them. I would be like, hey, let's just make it publicity, and then after it does get publicity, we'll talk about money after.
I don't know. I think I'm different as a businessman. I think I would talk about money first.
All right.
Can't give that kind of information for free all the time. You give them a little taste, get them hooked, and so forth. But the idea, though, that he has not identified these three people, and so much demands being made, and it's being made under their authority.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine anyone sitting there and not saying, well, I need evidence of this authority. Who are you?
Yep.
And I haven't heard him say that he came to the point where he decided to ask them who they are. And that's hanging me up on this story. Just to be honest, that is hanging me up on this story. That seems to be one of my hang up points that I just can't get around.
Right.
We'll see more about what he has to say.
I said, well, you've got to be joking. I mean, this is very powerful what you're wanting me to read here, and your contention is that the person who wrote this earlier paper is the person who wrote this. And he said, then another one of the three said, yes, he asked us to bring it to you. And I said, okay, well, I'll just have to look into this.
So this gentleman is so renowned that these exquisitely written papers with complex material about the Phoenix Lights and probably something to do with 0-point energy as well is brought to him, but yet he is not
Learning ID and
but I mean he's not like like the name Paul Lazar most people in the UFO industry know, and they know his story. This gentleman, I don't know.
we'll probably find out up towards the end of it.
Right. I haven't heard of him. And now this is coming from someone who is not a UFO researcher and stuff like that to sit there and say, oh, well, definitively he's nobody because I don't know him. But it seems weird that if he had all this information, he had this visit, and they have people sending him saying, we want you to read this paper in specifically, and we want you to understand it, and we're willing to wait. You would think that he would be slightly more renowned.
Right.
And study it. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do next. And I said, am I a candidate for something? And then there was some other dialogue that we shouldn't discuss here that made note of the fact, I made note of the fact that they already knew things that I was surprised that they knew. And I said, there were some other things that were said, and my final comment was, well, where should I discuss this?
Uh-huh.
And the third gentleman who hadn't spoken at all said, you'll know. I said, that's very ambiguous, I'll know. He said, well, you've handled things very well up to now. So, and I didn't know in what context that was.
Well, once again, okay, here's a red flag. Here's a big stop sign. We're giving you all of this important information, and we trust you to know when this should be used.
No, it seems like now he's just starting to wanting to identify after he did all this. 'Cause he asked,
You're cutting out really bad.
you already basically, yeah, because the area I'm in. Am I still cutting out?
No, you're better now.
Hello? All
You're
right.
better now. Go on.
So what I was saying now, I was saying now he's basically getting into identification because he's like, I forgot okay. I forgot what I was going to say. I hate when I do that.
It happens. It happens to the best of us. My take with this is, though, it seems like now he's painting himself as, initially it was I am a nonpartisan, unbiased researcher. I just want the answers. To now, he is someone that is so knowledgeable and important on the subject that someone would come to him with information that he was not aware of, that he was surprised they were aware of, and being trusted with it and being told he would know when the time to use it was. To me, that's once again setting up huge bullshit fireworks.
UFO research. But you know the degrees that these have happened because I've been involved with this for a long time. And in certain circles where my work is regarded, I later assumed that they knew of that. And then subsequent phone calls that I've had, too, indicate a very high level of interest in the fact that I have access to and have the original tapes.
So you think you're dealing with the government?
I think about that a lot. I deal with the government every day. I deal with DARPA. I deal with the Army. I deal with contractors of the government, such as TRW.
Yep.
And there are so many stratas and layers of the government, and when we would diagram those out, we would come to the conclusion that the octopus and the arm and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission are themselves changing at the same time that all agencies of the government now have people who grew up in the 60s who are in positions of authority.
So you were dealing with somebody of this group was representing some sort of official organization of some kind.
I am certain.
Now, here's the thing. I believe he's going to say he's certain they were. Once again, I have not heard him say that he identified them.
Right.
Now,
And this also goes down here.
Right.
Because when the three men came up to him, he's like, he don't think they're government because they don't have suits on. And now all of a sudden, I think they might be working with the government or something affiliated with the government.
Yeah, I don't remember if he said that they dressed like regular government employees or not. I believe he said they did, but it just wasn't the black suits.
I swear at first when he first started talking about three men, that he's they're not dressed like the government because they didn't have the suit.
Okay, I could be wrong. But yeah, either way, you've still got some very demanding people that have a lot of information that seem to know you and know him and his history rather.
Right.
And he doesn't know what government agency they're from, if they are from the government.
But then, if they are government, wouldn't they have some kind of a badge?
Not necessarily, but usually. But that, regardless, to want to gather this kind of information, you would think that they would identify themselves right away.
Right.
At least that would be what I would suspect. If I was in the situation, that's what I would expect, is that whenever they came up to me, they identified themselves. You know, after they determined I was the person they were looking for. So, once again, that's the skeptic in me just coming out, and it seems to be coming really heavy in the story. So we will continue on.
Certain that the person who asked them to come see me, who is at the very highest levels of NASA, is well aware of the fact that the Phoenix Lights, for whatever reason...
And once again, who's at the highest level of NASA, Now, he name dropped plenty of times before. Why not name drop now? I mean, it's not like he's got to provide evidence of who it is, but he's name dropped plenty of other times. Why not now? Especially when you're saying he's like one of the most prominent men or women in NASA. You know, I don't know. I'm going to say I don't know a lot in this one because I don't know. I don't know if I believe him. I don't think I do.
Reason by
Don't either.
whatever other agency has become an icon must now be dealt with by those other agencies who compete with each other. If the understanding, the knowledge, the wisdom that goes along with this entire affair is to be perpetrated.
Was there any threat, subtle or direct? Was there any? They certainly gave you direction. Was there any threat, any intimidation?
I would not characterize it in that way. I felt that they knew that I knew how to proceed. In fact,
in other words, everybody understood who they were talking to.
Everybody understood each other.
That seems like that would be an odd take from the way he's describing their conversation and their interaction. I would have taken most of what they said as a threat, or I would have felt threatened. Especially if they had information that was so out there and dealing with something that I studied and knew me. You know, and I'm still assuming he doesn't know who they are. He's just making assumptions. And Art asked him, he goes, so it was just, everybody understands who everybody is and what everybody's supposed to do. And his answer is yes. I don't see very many people willing to go with that narrative. Or willing to say it and say, believe me with this. I just really didn't ask them who they were. I mean, it's one thing if he said, I asked them who they were and I don't want to disclose it.
Yep.
That I could kind of respect. That I could kind of see. But to say,
But then,
I
don't know who they are. So.
Yeah, to say I never asked, that one's kind of funny. It just doesn't seem right.
And I've been in some very...
so what are you going to do?
What we're doing right now. I feel that, first of all, I feel that Captain Benz is not an adversary but is an ally. I don't think she made anything up. I think she has delivered information about the flares, and there very well may have been flares many miles away.
But that is not what the Phoenix Lights were, and of course that's what's being used.
Okay, so he does not believe that the officer is an enemy. He believes that she's an ally, which is fine. But once again, we are playing off, well, there may have been flares, but that was a different incident. It looks like there wouldn't be confusion over what incident was what incident, because from my understanding and from what I remember, this footage was played almost every place. So I don't see that having the original footage would matter that greatly, because I believe the original footage was shared all over the place.
Oh yeah. And is he the one with the original footage?
Well, he said he was, but
yeah, he said he was, but is he actually it? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
By everybody who wants to explain it away as flares.
Explain it away.
I bet you I've seen a million stories.
Right.
Flares explained, usually the headline says, or UFOs explained as flares, blah, blah, blah.
Right. And
blah, blah, blah.
some people will use that to their advantage to explain it away, and others who have developed a sense of critical thinking will know that that is merely a temporary diversion.
Well, you know.
Now, see, I find that odd, and it's very telling what he just said there. He said that the people who will say it's flares, it's an easy way to explain it away. But if you say it's not flares, then you're capable of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's critical thinking defined by, I want to believe that these are UFOs, so I'm going to find a way to believe they're UFOs. And the way I'm going to believe they're UFOs is I'm going to dismiss that the United States government said what everybody saw was flares. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying go trust the government with everything, because if you do that, you're foolish.
Right.
However, this just isn't adding up, at least not to me.
It's not. It's like it's all over the board.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Well, interestingly, Jim, one of the stories I read that said UFOs explained as flares, at the bottom of it said that the captain, I think it was the captain or whoever it was who talked about the flares, said these were flares designed to remain airborne for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Now, the Phoenix incident, nearly as I can recall, was 106 minutes.
That's correct. With a minimum of 4 separate events, and by multiple witnesses, we can claim evidence of 10 events. Remember, eyewitness reports is sufficient evidence to put a man in jail for life.
Sure.
In a UFO incident,
I don't know that eyewitness testimony is always that powerful. Because I've seen a lot of eyewitnesses torn apart by a defense attorney or a prosecutor because they just simply got details wrong. So if we're going to say this is something, because let's be honest, if UFOs appeared in the sky and the government said, yes, we've been talking to aliens and so forth, our society would turn upside down on its head because everything we knew and believed would be changed. So, I just, this seems so laissez-faire. It seems so milquetoast. The way it's being treated, it's happening. And
but still, we still don't know who they are.
Right. And it's, we know we have like 10 separate events is what he's saying. So 10 separate events, and the military's talking about flares that last 5 minutes. Well, if you have 10 separate events and each one's 5 minutes long, you've got 500 minutes there.
So what was it? At 140 seconds or minutes, whatever.
Well, yeah, I think it's him. You've got 5 minutes for each time. So, and 10 separate incidents would lead to 50 minutes worth of flare time. However, with it being spread out, is what I'm saying. It would you could hit that, you could hit that time span by saying, well, it's 10 separate incidences, and where it was visible and then not visible and visible and not visible, and I believe that's how he presented it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we will go back to the audio.
even pilots that we have on the ground who reported what they saw in the air and claimed that it was not a legion of airplanes or flares are now discounted.
I understand.
So the paradox here is that the more reliable the witness, the more intense the claims of chicanery or fraud.
That's right.
So the benefit in all of this is that, and I use the word again, critical thinking is being developed in people. You know, I've been in labs 2 o'clock.
Once again, the use of critical thinking there is kind of skewed. Because critical thinking is, I've got a narrative and I'm going to find evidence of it. Because that seems to be what he's doing now, although he says he does the contrary. So, I don't know. Like I said, his story may very well be true, but it doesn't feel right for some reason.
Yeah, not just adding up.
In the morning where they listen to the Art Bell Show. They don't have 60s radio. They don't have 80s radio. They have the Art Bell Show. And these are places that we all hear about. These are government labs with 90% of the people at night weren't even born when the Roswell incident happened.
Right.
And these people think. They don't react. They think. And there is a blanket of subtle consciousness change that is happening. I'm not going to go into religion or metaphysics here. Everyone has their own patterns and beliefs as they should have. But a consciousness about what to believe and what not to believe. And the claims of flares has only intensified people's yearning to know what it really was.
Sure.
No one really believes that it was flares.
Well,
I'm not sure that no one really believes that it was flares.
He's not the one that's not believing that it's flares.
Well, see, statements like that are designed are very manipulative, because when you say a statement like that no one believes it, and you're the person that believes it, you are inclined to change your mind to fit in with the pack. So statements like that are manipulative right from the start. And I find it odd that he would use the language he's using. You know, that nobody believes it, and critical thinking is taking place. So.
Well,
Like the crash
it
test
sure isn't for a lack of newspaper stories claiming that, and ridicule emanating from certain people who do talk in Phoenix and so forth and so on.
Yes.
All right, Jim, I want to thank you for relating this to us. I guess if anybody has encountered the men in black who weren't necessarily in black, it was you. And if you have any follow-on or follow-up, I sure would appreciate a call or a fax or whatever, and we'll get you on there. Very, very interesting. Thanks very much, Jim.
Thanks again. Okay, bye, Art.
Have a good night. All right, so there you have it. Jim Delatoso down in Arizona, who apparently got a visit. Gee, how synchronistic. We just did a whole show on the Men in Black. What would you have done?
Well,
I would have done still try to find out who the heck these men in black are and why they're so interested in this discovery, or I don't know if that would be the right way to say it, but why they're so interested in my information. Because he never said that he who they were. So we're still in the puzzle on that one.
Yeah, I think if it was me, I would have first asked for identification and what agency they were under and what authority they would have to ask me the questions that they're asking me, or to ask me to read the documents that they asked him to read.
Right.
Because of these things, I find his story not credible. And that may bother some people that want to believe, but the thing about wanting to believe and believing is you have to do it responsibly. And when a story doesn't add up like this, I don't think it's responsible. I think the gentleman here was wanting to sell a book or get some airtime on a very popular AM late night radio show. So that closes it up because that's the end of the show, Trucker. Do you have?
Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully you guys enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was a show. We're over the 2-hour mark, so we put in the work tonight. Trucker, before we go, do you have anything you'd like to say to these folks?
A couple things. First off, hope you feel better tomorrow, Jen. It'll be today when you watch this. Again, if you're a small creator and you if you want to join the asylum, the link has been pinned, and if you need help, we're more than happy to help you. Or if you're wanting to become a creator and you want to know more stuff, again, just click the link.
That sounds good. Okay. My closing thoughts are pretty much the same as always. Little added flavor to it. Jen, I hope you start feeling better soon so you can come back and entertain your people with Trucker. And everybody, until we see each other next time, if we see each other next time, be good to yourself and each other.
Neon sign blinks out the time. Another Saturday night is done. Trucker Tiger Lily's voice fades low beneath the setting sun. Plastic cups and peanut shells, the table's starting to clear. Polly hums a quiet tune, chasing away the last fear. We watched the fireflies dance outside, felt the highway rolling on. Guess it's time to put our boots on before the cold light of dawn. Hugs and jugs, the lounge is quiet. Hear the final call chime. Finish up your bourbon sweet, we'll see you next time. Monday through Saturday, 4 p.m. sharp. You know where to find the light. Safe drive home, friends. We wish you all a good night. Remember hitting like and share, keeping the connection strong. Every comment, every cheer is where we truly belong. From upstate miles and dusty roads, we gather round the screen, sharing stories, sharing load, feeling safe and sane. The bar stool's scrape, the door swings wide, one last wave across the floor. But the music lingers deep inside, always wanting something more. Hugs and jugs, the lounge is quiet. Hear the final call chime. Finish up your bourbon sweet, we'll see you next time. Monday through Saturday, 4 p.m. sharp. You know where to find the light. Safe drive home, friends. We wish you all a good night. Till the next hello, keep that memory warm, friend. Let the good times flow. The road is long, but the destination's bright. We appreciate you hanging out with with us all night. Hugs and jugs, the lounge is quiet. Hear the final call chime. Finish up your bourbon, sweet. We'll see you next time. Monday through Saturday, 4 p.m. sharp. You know where to find the light. Safe drive home, friends. We wish you all a good night. See you next stream. Hit that notification bell. Drive safe now. Hear the steel guitar call. Good night, y'all.